This is the story of what Angie Dickinson has finally revealed about Frank Sinatra after decades of silence, followed by decades of brutal honesty. The Hollywood legend is 94 years old now, and for the past 25 years, she's been openly discussing a man she still calls the love of my life. And her revelations paint a picture far more complex than the sanitized versions we usually hear about old Hollywood romances. From 1953 to the early 1970s, Angie Dickinson and Frank Sinatra carried on what she describes as an on and off relationship that lasted 20 years. Both were married to other people when they met. They nearly got married in 1964, and yet she's grateful they didn't. What Angie has revealed about the real Frank Sinatra covers the difficult, the wonderful, the brave, and the foolish, and today we're diving into all of it. The story begins in 1953 when a 21-year-old Angie Dickinson, still going by Angeline Brown back then, placed second in a local Miss America preliminary in Burbank, California. That small success caught a casting agent's attention, which landed her appearances on NBC's The Colgate Comedy Hour, and that's where everything changed. Angie described what happened next in a 2023 Variety interview, and her words capture the moment perfectly. "I walked in, and right at the door where I walked in, there was Frank Sinatra singing with Jimmy Durante. I said, 'Oh, I've got to be a part of this.' It was just magical." The magic didn't stop at the performance, though. Backstage, Sinatra's bodyguard summoned her to Frank's dressing room, and the 37-year-old singer, then still married to Ava Gardner, asked her directly if she was attached. She was attached, having married football player Gene Dickinson just a year earlier in June 1952. When Sinatra asked for her phone number anyway, she gave it to him, and that single choice tells you everything about what was about to unfold. Angie reveals this truth without apology, that their relationship began as an affair with both of them married. She was 21, he was 37, a 16-year age gap that didn't seem to matter at all. Something undeniable existed between them from that very first meeting, as she's explained in multiple interviews over the past 25 years. What followed was what Angie has consistently described as a 20-year on and off relationship, and notice those specific words she chooses because they matter. This wasn't a continuous love affair or a secret marriage, but something more complicated, more adult, and perhaps more honest than most Hollywood relationships ever managed to be. Her 2016 Studio 10 interview included this plain statement: "He was the most important man in my life. We were lovers on and off for many years." But here's where Angie's revelations get interesting, where she describes their connection in a way that explains everything. In a 1999 interview, she put it this way: "We had an incredible like for each other, and a very comfortable relationship." Pay attention to that word, the one she chose deliberately. Like, not burning passion, not all-consuming love, but an incredible like. And she believes that's exactly why it lasted 2 decades. Entertainment Weekly got this quote from her in 2023. "I was crazy about him. He was fabulous. He was absolutely the love of my life, though I would not have wanted to be married to him." This is the truth about Frank that Angie reveals, that loving someone and being able to live with someone are 2 entirely different things, and knowing the difference matters. Angie landed the role in 1960 that would forever link her publicly with Frank when she got cast in Ocean's 11. She played Beatrice Ocean as the wife of Frank's character Danny Ocean, and the film, released on August 10, 1960, became the highest-grossing motion picture of Sinatra's entire career. The making of Ocean's 11 reveals something about who Frank really was, though. The shooting schedule was absolutely unconventional because the Rat Pack members, Frank, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop, were performing shows at 8 p.m. and midnight in Las Vegas casinos during production. They'd film between shows, often not arriving on set until 3 o'clock or 6 p.m., and much of the footage was shot between 3 a.m. and dawn. Why such a ridiculous schedule? The entire production was essentially an excuse for the group to spend time together, and that tells you what mattered to Frank. Frank's attitude on set wasn't exactly accommodating either. Angie recalls that when a director once requested a second take, "We both knew that there was no need for another take, and he went home as a result." Impatient, demanding, and used to getting his way. That was Frank Sinatra on a film set. But Angie also reveals his power for good, noting that Sinatra helped break the color barrier by ensuring Sammy Davis Jr. appeared on equal billing with his white colleagues. In those times, only Sinatra's power could make that happen, she said, and that's the complexity she reveals throughout her stories about him. Frank was difficult, but he was also brave, using his power for his own convenience, but also for justice when he chose to. The most revealing part of Angie's truth-telling comes when she discusses 1964, just after Angie divorced Gene Dickinson, and before she married composer Burt Bacharach in May 1965. Something significant happened that year, something that could have changed both their lives. Angie told CBS Sunday Morning in February 2019, "We got very close to getting married in 1964. Very close, not we discussed it, or we thought about it, but very close. Then came a conversation that tells you everything you need to know about both of them, and Angie has recounted it multiple times with the same details. Here's her exact account of what Frank said to her. And he said, 'You know, I'm not going to marry an actress.' And I said, 'Well, I don't blame you. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.' And I actually didn't want to marry him. So, I didn't want him to ask me to marry him, because I didn't want to say no to Frank Sinatra." Let's unpack this truth she's revealing, because there's so much in those few sentences. Frank told her he wouldn't marry an actress. Then just 2 years later, in July 1966, he married actress Mia Farrow, and the irony wasn't lost on anyone. But more important than Frank's contradiction is what Angie admits about herself. She didn't want to marry him either, and she gives us the real reason in that same CBS interview and multiple others. He went to bed at 6 a.m. Think about what she's really saying here, what the actual deal breaker was. This wasn't about his fame, his temper, or even his womanizing, but about incompatible lifestyles. Frank was a night owl who lived on his own schedule, while Angie, despite her Hollywood career, wasn't built for that life. Her Fox News interview from April 2023, when she was 91 years old, expanded on this same theme. "I was crazy about him, though I would not have wanted to be married to him. He went to bed at 6 a.m. This is the mature truth that Angie reveals, that you can love someone completely and still recognize that marriage would be a disaster. And there's wisdom in that recognition. So, who was the real Frank Sinatra according to the woman who knew him intimately for 20 years? Angie's description given to Fox News in 2023 is brutally honest and uses 4 specific words. He was difficult, wonderful, brave, and foolish. Let's break down what she means by each one. Difficult shows up in her stories about his impatience on set, his late hours, and his demands. Multiple interviews make clear he wasn't easy to be around or easy to love. Wonderful comes through in her words to Fox News. He was an extraordinary talent, to say the least. She recalls, "You could feel the whole room change when Frank walked in. Working with him taught me a lot." Brave appears in his stance on civil rights, his refusal to perform in segregated venues, and his insistence on equal treatment for Sammy Davis Jr., positions that weren't popular in the 1950s and 60s and could have cost him his career. And foolish. Well, marrying Mia Farrow just 2 years after telling Angie he wouldn't marry an actress might qualify as foolish, or maybe it just shows that Frank didn't always practice what he preached. But here's what Angie reveals that might be most important about Frank's impact. She's told interviewers that her mother was against her being an actress until I introduced her to Frank Sinatra, which means his charm was real and his charisma was undeniable. Angie also reveals something surprising about Dean Martin, Frank's best friend. He faked all that drunkenness, that persona he was known for. He never had a drink in his adulthood. The Rat Pack image was partially an act, a performance even offstage, and knowing that changes how you see those famous Las Vegas shows. After Angie married Burt Bacharach in 1965, and Frank married Mia Farrow in 1966, their romantic relationship ended. But the friendship didn't end with it. November 1977 brought Angie to The Tonight Show when Frank was guest hosting. By then, she was divorced from Bacharach, and Frank was married to Barbara Marx, his 4th and final wife. but they clearly maintained their connection across the years and through all the marriages and divorces. What's remarkable is that this friendship lasted all the way until Frank's death on May 14, 1998, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. He was 82 years old when he died. Angie was 66, and that's when the revelations began. For the first years after Frank's death, Angie seems to have remained relatively quiet about their relationship. But starting around the mid-2000s and continuing through today, she's been remarkably and consistently candid about everything. 2015 brought her appearance as an interview subject in the HBO documentary Sinatra, All or Nothing at All. She participated in the 50th anniversary Blu-ray commentary for Ocean's 11 alongside Frank Sinatra Jr., and at the 2015 TCM Classic Film Festival, she publicly discussed their 20-year, on and off, relationship for what seems like the first time in detail. Then came the 2019 CBS Sunday Morning interview with Emma Rocca, where she detailed the near marriage and explained why she was relieved it didn't happen, and that interview opened the floodgates. Most recently, in 2023, at age 91, she gave multiple interviews to Fox News, Variety, and Entertainment Weekly, all saying essentially the same thing with the same conviction. He's the love of my life. I just smile because it feels good to think about him. Her 2021 endorsement for Tony Apedisano's book Sinatra and Me includes this revealing statement. I knew and loved and dated and worshipped Frank Sinatra. He was like no one else, and I consider myself a very contented survivor. Notice that word choice there. Notice she calls herself a survivor. And even in her praise, she acknowledges the difficulty of being close to Frank. And perhaps most telling of all, when a 2024 columnist reported having lunch with her in March of that year, she was still talking about Sinatra without prompting. At 94 years old, 26 years after his death, she still lights up when she talks about him. And that tells you everything about what he meant to her. Before we wrap this up, we need to address one persistent rumor that's followed Angie for decades. Various biographers, particularly Christopher Anderson, have claimed that Angie had an affair with President John F. Kennedy, and an alleged quote, "It was the most exciting 7 minutes of my life," has been attributed to her for years. So what's the truth according to Angie? Here's what she has said across different decades. To CBS Sunday Morning in 2019, she gave a flat denial. There was no reason or no grounds for thinking that I was seeing him, and I wasn't. That's about as clear as it gets, but back in 1993, she told Entertainment Weekly something more ambiguous. I don't believe in lying, but I will, dodge the question, okay? And in 1985, she told People magazine, I'm flattered that they'd put me with him because I just think he was the greatest. Still, one wonders, did Jackie really think I said this or that? So what's the real truth here? Angie's denials have become more direct over time, moving from dodging the question to flat denial, and the JFK affair claims come from biographers, not from Angie herself. Her consistent denials over decades suggest this may be unsubstantiated gossip rather than verified truth. But notice what's interesting about her honesty pattern. While she's been completely open and honest about her affair with Frank, including starting it while both were married, she's consistently denied the JFK rumors across multiple decades. If she were willing to lie about affairs, she could have easily denied Frank too, but she didn't. Her honesty about one and denial of the other actually gives her denials more credibility than they might otherwise have. So what has Angie Dickinson really revealed about Frank Sinatra over these 25 years of truth-telling? She's revealed that love doesn't require marriage, that you can be someone's great love without being their spouse, and that an incredible like can last longer than burning passion ever could. She's revealed that Frank was complex in ways the public didn't always see, difficult and wonderful at the same time, brave and foolish in equal measure. He was impatient on set, but fought for civil rights. He had the power to change a room just by walking into it, and the power to change society when he chose to use it. She's revealed that Hollywood romances aren't always epic tragedies or fairy tale endings, that sometimes they're 20-year, on and off relationships between two people who loved each other enough to recognize that marriage would ruin what they had. Most important of all, she's revealed what real maturity looks like. At 94 years old, she doesn't rewrite history or pretend he was perfect or claim she was wronged. She doesn't say he was the one that got away or that she has regrets. Instead, she says this and means both parts equally. He's the love of my life, and I would not have wanted to be married to him. Both things are true at the same time. Both things can be true, and understanding that takes wisdom most people never develop. That's the real truth about Frank Sinatra that Angie Dickinson reveals, that he was exactly who he was, flawed and talented and difficult and unforgettable. And she loved him not despite knowing the truth about him, but because she did. 26 years after his death, she still smiles when she thinks about him. As she told Fox News in 2023, "I just smile because it feels good to think about him." Maybe that's the greatest love story of all, one that doesn't need a wedding or a tragic ending. Just two people who understood each other, enjoyed each other, and remained in each other's lives for half a century. That's the truth about Frank Sinatra, according to the woman who knew him best.